Already? Okay, thanks for coming here on short notice this afternoon. As everybody is aware, following the news for the last couple of days, that we have a very serious situation that's unfolded in Badger and, of course, central Newfoundland. As with all forest fires, things can change very quickly, and we just recently, just literally right before we decided to come down here to do this announcement, that we've made the decision to evacuate the community of Badger. So the mayor, who I spoke with this morning, and made sure that he was aware that the provincial government was here for anything that they needed, and we'll be there, of course, to help work through the evacuation process now over the next little while. Approximately 450, 500 people in the community. The officials are working on it through the Emergency Operations Center to make sure that they're aware and they have the right resources to get out of the community. Of course, we thought there might be a little window to make this decision a little bit later in the day, but we certainly felt it's better to be safe than sorry and make sure we move these people as soon as possible, and that they know that we are there for them and that we'll provide any resources they need to get out of the community. We're recommending that they move to Grand Falls, Windsor. That everybody will be asked, if they don't have anywhere else to go, that they can go to the Joe Byrne Arena in Grand Falls, Windsor. So the Emergency Operations Center, as I say, will be working with the town and with members throughout the community to make sure that they find a safe place to go for as long as they need to go. As I said, this decision was made just 10 or 15 minutes ago, actually, so it has been communicated already to the community and to specifically the mayor and to individuals, children in school, and they'll work with the Department of Education if any busing is needed or things like that. Of course, it's always important, as we know, that things can change very quickly, to make sure that members of the community pay attention to government channels, whether it's Facebook, whether it's the mayor, or whether it's myself or Minister Dempster or Minister Haggie, to get the proper and accurate information about what's happening on the ground. Of course, we know that we're not making this decision lightly, but the fact that we don't see signs of weather improving over the short term, as I said, it's better to be safe than sorry in situations like this. There is some potential forecasts for rain in the next coming days, but we can't really wait on that. That might be too late. There were some points where we were looking at the fire, if it could get to. People in the community will be familiar with this. If it was near the transmission assets, the transmission lines, or the river, which is close to the community. It's not there yet to either of those points, but again, we didn't want to wait until the last minute to make this decision, just to make sure everybody has appropriate length of time to move to another community. Like I said, the recommendation is Grand Falls, Windsor. There are officials that can answer some of your questions here about the situation on the ground, but there is certainly one water bomber on the fire throughout the day, and a second one will be there as well. They work in shifts, approximately 4-hour shifts. And a third asset is coming from Goose Bay as well. There's going to be helicopters there, and sprinklers will be put on things throughout the community to make sure they're wet, to try and prevent any spread of the fire if it does get into the community. Again, I said that the weather is not looking great. We'll keep our fingers crossed and pray that the fire doesn't move into the community. But the most important thing, of course, is people's lives. Everyone in the community. I just really want them to know, to make sure that they listen to government officials. This is not done without their best interests at heart. We want to make sure that they're safe. You can replace homes, we can replace schools, we can replace roads, but we can't replace people. So we're there for them. Make sure that they know that. We want them to know that. And again, please be safe throughout the situation. We do have a part to play in these forest fires. This is not the first one we've seen this summer, and we're not even into July yet. So we have unfortunately been through this before, but it does mean that we have done these things before too. We've evacuated communities throughout the last couple of years, so officials do know what they're doing. They have expertise in this area, so I know it's important to listen to them throughout the next number of days as we move through this situation in Badger. Minister Dempster's here as well, so I'm just going to ask her to make a few comments with regards to the situation.
Thank you, Premier. We do know this. Situations like this, when we have to evacuate communities, is always really difficult. It's tough for people, it's tough for communities, but as the Premier alluded to, last year we carried out the largest evacuation in the history of our province, and people are also very resilient. I want to make a specific mention of drones. We've had 117 forest fires in our province thus far this year, most of them caused by human activity, but drones are a real impediment. When they are in the sky, we can't fly. That's the simple message that we want to get out to the public. We're in the age of new technology. Folks are concerned or sending drones up to have a look around, but it is an absolute no-no. I also want to remind folks that Experts in my department of FFA are continuously monitoring the risk of the fire assessment, and our crews and staff are working diligently, as the Premier said, not just to battle the fire, but to help keep people informed. And I think I'll leave it right there and open it up for questions, Premier.
Okay.
Premier Hogan, you said this decision was taken just minutes ago. What triggered the decision to evacuate?
Yeah, so we had asked the media to come here today just so we could provide an update on the forest fire and the situation in Badger. And as we were getting the information, the location of the fire, as I said, those 2 points, the transmission line and the river, if it reached there, that's when the evacuation order will be made. But as we sort of asked the questions, we realized that the fire was actually not far from there anyways. We were presented with sort of worst case scenario in terms of how long it would take to evacuate once it did reach either of those points, and I wasn't comfortable with the amount of time that would leave us to evacuate the community. So again, that was worst case scenario. That was assuming when they do this math, they assume there's no suppression efforts, and we know there are suppression efforts. But of course, I think it's fair to operate on the worst case scenarios, which is what we did and why we made that decision to, and then this media veil then turned in from an update to just an advisory about the evacuation.
What's being done to help people evacuate?
So there'll be transportation. The data we have from previous evacuations is, approximately 80% will be able to get out of the community by themselves. They have cars and trucks and things like that, so they can move to the community, to Grand Falls, Windsor. But we will arrange busing and other transportation modes for anyone who needs it.
What happens if someone refuses to leave?
Listen, nobody should refuse to leave. We're not making this evacuation order lightly. It's for people's health. It's people's livelihoods. It's people's lives. This is a very serious situation. I mean, these forest fires can move much faster than even the math can show sometimes. So we encourage everybody to listen to this recommendation and this evacuation order.
And Premier, I think an important note is when someone decides they're not going to leave, they are putting the lives of other people at risk who may have to go in later to try and rescue them.
Minister Dempster, you speak to the use of drones around these wildfires. Just how often, I guess, has the Department of Forestry seen, drones being used this forest fire season?
Well, last season, as the minister responsible for Labrador, I would have worked closely with the former Premier on the fires in Churchill Falls and Labrador City, and our now Premier as well, as he was in Justice, Fire and Emergency Services. We didn't see it as much. This season seems to be the first time that really we're dealing with drones in most of the fires that are occurring, and it's not a good thing. So it's a big no-no.
Has it prevented bombers from getting up? Water bombers?
It hasn't prevented, but it places a risk because, these folks are in the air, they're doing their work, they need the visibility, and there's a lot of moving parts when they're there. So we just ask everybody to do their part and get that information out, follow official channels, and you'll see information there as well.
How big is the fire, and has it hit any homes yet or structures?
Yeah, so it's about 500 to 600 hectares that they are having a little bit of issue making that a little bit more specific, that number, but that's the approximate size right now.
Any homes?
Not that I'm aware of, no, but this is why we're doing the evacuation order, so people aren't in their homes if it does move into the community.
Well, we saw a note from the fire chief of Grand Falls, Windsor, that said that I guess he believed that the fire was started by lightning. Is there any kind of evidence to that point?
Go ahead.
There was a lightning storm last evening. It actually prohibited clearance from the aircraft getting into the air for a little while. And so, yes, that is a concern, and in likelihood that's what it stemmed from, but we don't have that confirmed yet.
Obviously, the hope is that people leave as soon as possible, but when you make these decisions, is there a time frame contemplated for what is reasonable to get people, what do you understand and how long it will take for people to get home, into their cars, get their stuff, and leave the community?
Yeah, so, that's why we do the evacuation order, so we can speed up that process once an evacuation alert. That's why we give them the alert, so they're prepared and ready to go when the order is made. So hopefully everybody took that advice when the evacuation alert was issued. It would take, not as much time then to actually get in your car. You should be ready to go. It should be a matter of minutes, really. But of course, as I said, we made this decision, looking at where the fires were and how they could move, and we felt like there was still a little bit of time before we could make that decision. But I don't want anybody to think that means they have more time to leave. Just leave now, get to Grand Falls, Windsor, be safe, and we can talk about the consequences of whatever happens at a future date. But most important is to get out of the community.
And can you just clarify, just so to make sure, it's
Yep.
just the area of Badger right now, is it?
That's correct, yes.
Just Badger.
Is there financial aid for families? When does that start to happen?
So, we don't even know what the consequences of this are yet. People hopefully will leave and be able to return to their homes very soon, and there'll be no structural damage, no community damage. We worry about things like that later. We care about people's lives here today.
Any lessons learned from,
Sorry, go ahead.
do you want to?
Go ahead.
I didn't know.
Yeah, you go ahead.
So as of today, effective immediately, we are also implementing a province-wide fire ban. We have weather indexes that are high, very high in certain areas. All that information is on our dashboard, happening in real time. It's essential that we do that because we want the resources right now where they're needed. And more fires means you have to spread your resources more thin.
Did you say that there's someone on the line that might be able to speak, I guess, specifically to what resources are on the ground right now and what can be expected over the coming days?
Yeah, I see Jamie Chippett and Blair Adams, both from FFA. So if you have any specific questions that if I can or Minister Dempster can answer, sure.
Yeah, just, I guess, what resources are on the ground right now and what could be expected?
Yep. So Jamie or Blair, you could go ahead. I mentioned the 3 water bombers, but you could go ahead and provide some more detail.
Sure. Thanks for the question. So 3 water bombers, Premier already mentioned. There are also 2 helicopters that we expect at our disposal. One coming from St. John's, one from Appleton. And at this point in time, it wouldn't be safe to have ground crews on the fire, so they will certainly be available in coming days when it is safe to do so. But primary assets now are aerial suppression assets in terms of water bombers and helicopters.
I wonder if some commentary can be made about the behavior of the fire. It seems to be moving quickly. Is that a result of how hot it's been? Do we have some kind of understanding from a scientific point of view of the characteristics of this fire aside from the size?
Yeah, so it is a complicated mathematical evaluation, so I mean, they can comment on that. Obviously, it takes into account the wind and the humidity in the air and things like that.
I guess the initial thing is people are aware we've had a dry, start to the fire season, started earlier than normal. And then secondly, we have had a string of hot, dry weather that has led to fire indices that are, high, very high and extreme over time. And we had a lightning strike, obviously, that came through recently that resulted in the start of this fire. And if you combine that with the distance from the community, the types of fuels that are available for the fire to burn, and wind direction and speed today, that's resulting in really the recommendation to evacuate.
I'll just add to that, we have a fire behavioral specialist every day, so they plug in different scenarios, and we look at the wind today, the weather, temperature, and then we compare last season, places like Lab West, we have data that show how fast some of the fire moves depending on the amount of timber, fuel, we might call it, in the area. And so it can give us a fairly good guesstimate of the pace and time that the fire can travel in an hour, in 2 hours, etc.
Any lessons learned from Adams Cove in fighting this one?
I think 2 things I would say. Adams Cove moved very fast as well and kind of came out of nowhere, and then the next thing, people's houses were burning down in the community. So I think the first lesson is to recognize that you don't have time in these situations. The second thing, as I said, and I'll keep saying it, and I'll probably say it unfortunately throughout the summer, is listen to officials. Like, don't think that, oh, I'm safe here, I'm on this edge of town, or it's not going to get to me as fast. It can.
In addition to that, we've been working really hard collectively to get the messaging out of asking folks, imploring them to be responsible. If you're driving down the road, that flick of a cigarette out the window, if you're leaving litter in the woods, that shiny can on a hot day, we really do all have a role to play here, given the high number of forest fires. I just spent 2 days with all of the forestry ministers from across provinces and territories, and the high number of fires caused by human activity right across all our provinces and territories is certainly known.
Just overall, how does this fire season so far kind of compare to years past?
So far, it's looking to be average, and the latest that we have is a little different than we thought a few weeks ago. Maybe Western Canada will be a little more impacted than we are. Right now, we're seeing provinces like Manitoba have a real challenge, but as I said earlier, we have had 117 fires thus far this season, so it is important, as the Premier said, that everybody be on alert, and he's making this call today, safety first for the people of the province.
Is there someone on the screen who's actually in Badger who can describe what they're seeing there?
I don't think they're in Badger. Okay, thanks, everybody.